Hello families, wanted to make a video today because I want to try to keep up with what did I start with in my own families. Now we're starting midstream here. Obviously, I've got kids that are from the ages of 10 to 4, and I've been their dad the whole time. So with this information that I've started that has to do with fatherhood training or fathers in training. I'm training myself, and there's a lot that goes into it. So, some of the things I've been doing for a long time, but there are an endless amount of things that I know I need to do that I have not done that I'm beginning to implement. And so, the whole point is that I become a better and better and better father. The only way to do that is to have a goal. You have to have a vision of the way things should be before you can make any headway into making it that way. So the first thing to do is to have a better idea what's wrong and what can I do differently that's going to bring me into alignment with being a better father. And so I just wanted to make sure I'm starting with um, what are the initial things that I'm doing. I can't get into all the framework of it in this because there's a lot of teaching that goes with it. Some of it that we're doing right now is it's a cultural problem, and that's ultimately what's wrong. This has been going on has been building for several hundred years. Even what the Industrial Revolution did to family and taking the father out of the family, that's a major problem that I have to live with an understanding of that so I can make up for it. So a lot of this has to do with understanding the cultural shifts along the way and what's happened to the family because of what has happened in the culture, what's become normal. And when we think through some of these problems, why do we think this way? What do we think about family, and where did that come from? Um, we got to do a lot of thinking in breaking this thing down and getting up a goal for family that's more accurate so that we can begin to make wrong things right. Okay, so again, I'm not going to get into much else other than what are the things that I've been doing in my own home. And just to start somewhere, I have been coming home. This isn't the first time I have thought through these things or tried to do them, but I'm trying to do it in a systematic way in which I'm building on top of one or the other to where we're getting real breakthrough in the big picture. I have started to come home with the intention of engaging my kids. Okay, I typically come home from work about 5 o'clock in the evening, maybe 5 to 6, somewhere around in there. And so typically, Arita is trying to get some kind of dinner made. And again, that is a cultural pressure that's been placed upon the woman in American culture. It's not fair. In fact, I know a lot of families don't play by those rules anymore just because it's not fair. Both mom and dad are working nowadays because in order to keep up the American dream, it takes two incomes to have all the stuff we want to have. We get into a lot of let me not go down a rabbit trail and try to talk about all the problems that have been created. Long story short, I'm coming home from being away from the family. Arita's now working as well. So although we've had her at home, thank God, through all these years up until this year, she's able to have a job in which uh, she's with the kids at school, and she's on this campus where I'm at, which is it's a win-win for us in a lot of ways. But she comes home from work, just halfway gone, done. You know how hard it is to work and do a good job at something, to give yourself of it. And then she feels the pressure to cook a full meal and to have it all ready and it to be healthy and on and on and on. These are things I never, ever speak to, like, you should do this. I don't ever do that. I'm silent because I don't think it's fair. However, Arita takes that upon herself because she's a pretty driven person and she has these traditional expectations of her role that her mom did, And see, she does an incredible job in doing that. So I got a ton of respect for my wife. She's a workhorse. She sacrifices massively for her family, and I'm sorry to say, she leads the way in sacrifice. I don't know if women have that extra edge or something, but that's something I'm trying to step in. That's one of the many things I'll be talking about in these videos. And how can I step in and begin to sacrifice on the level that she does on a daily basis to alleviate the pressure she feels and the literal workload. Um, However, again, I'm digressing here. I've been coming home with the intention of engaging the kids. So she's usually kind of getting something ready, and the kids have got homework. And so I've been trying to come and get right in there, not get on my computer, which I'm drawn to do all kinds of things. I come home tired from work too, because mostly of the mental barrage that I deal with, it's this mental thing that really gets me throughout the day. But I come home and sometimes I want to unplug too. I want to go do my own thing. Um, and I have to fight that and say, no, it's my responsibility. These kids are. I really didn't have to do everything. It's my job. And I want to be a father who is intentional and who's engaging and who's helping and who's loving and who's connecting. And so I'm trying to sit down and work with whoever's got the most homework, start working with them through those things. And we got 4 kids, so usually 3 of them at least have some kind of homework. And so one of them's not old enough yet. And so we'll start working through that situation. That goes so fast. I mean, the evening at home just is, it's gone. And so it really does need to be, you need to have thought through exactly how will I engage my kids in this little bit of time that we've got. And so our evenings are bam, bam, bam for the most part. They're short and sweet. They're getting homework done. They're having dinner. We like to sit down, and I realize this isn't something everybody can do, but we like to sit down as a family and eat. Okay? That's just one of those touch points where you're all sitting around a table. And again, I'm not trying to put pressure on traditional mindset. That there's already that pressure there for families to do it. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying this is what we've done. I feel like it's important, and Arita feels like it's important that we sit around the table and we have some sort of family time. And we can do more videos on what some things in particular you can do during the meal that would increase your family engagement and make it powerful and important and meaningful. One of those things is just your typical praying, asking God's blessing over this time and over the food, and that you just spend some time together over a meal. So that's what we do. 9 times out of 10, it's not every single time. Sometimes, Wednesday night is there's different nights that are harder to pull that off, but for the most part, we will do that kind of an evening. And so then after that, we might have a little bit of downtime where we can watch a little bit of a show, or we can be a little bit different, this or that. But for the most part, it's bam, 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 just stuff. It goes fast, and then we're in the bed. Everybody's different with a bedtime. We try to aim for 9 o'clock for try to getting them, kind of wound down and getting into their separate corners. And then after that has taken place, what I'm trying to do now and make it a point that this is something Arita, again, she's done a really good job at this. She's a very good mom, but she has kind of pillow talk with all the kids, and she typically will go from one room to the next and have some downtime, maybe read a book here. And in the past, we've done a lot of that. I've read books to the kids, all 3 of them, but it's hard to keep that consistent because they're all on a different level of reading. And the older boys kind of like this, and the younger kids want the tiny books. And so we've done some of that where we're reading a particular book to a kid or something like that. But we've done a lot of reading for bedtime. That's a great thing to implement as well. Get good, solid material. For older kids, I would say Chronicles of Narnia. You cannot go wrong with some good Chronicles of Narnia stories. If they'll sit and listen to that, Lord of the Rings, powerful, powerful. real good books, that can be very helpful. Lots of touch points on those stories. You can talk about your faith and bring it into the present, into what's going on around them with evil and how you deal with evil and so forth and so on. Um, so there's that section of bedtime that's always a little bit different according to what kid and what season we're in. But I've been trying to, on top of that, have good pillow talk and prayer time with each one of my kids. And so that means I've got to go to each bedroom, and each kid's a little bit different. They're at a different level, but I want to bring out, what happened in the day. Um, Tell me about your life. What do you want to pray about? If you could have it any way you wanted, what would you ask God for? You want to begin to make those connections with a relationship with God, and petition and supplication and asking and wanting and desire. Desire is something that we don't talk nearly enough about in the Christian church. It is front. Now we know the enemy used desire, and you have to be very discerning about desire. But God uses desire too. He's the one that came up with that. That's why the enemy can use it, because the enemy's always co-opting what God started. God will use desire in us and in your children to draw you into the life that He wants you to live. And so you need to be talking about that with your kids. What do you desire? What kind of catches your attention in life of something you want to do? You want to stir those thoughts up and get them dreaming and thinking about their future, and thinking about their future in terms of, what am I on this earth for? What's my purpose? What's God put me on this earth for? What does He want me to do alongside Him? You want to start feeding that kind of that thinking pattern in your children, and get them really praying and asking. Get them to start asking early so it can develop as it should develop in their lives. And then pray with them. You want to get into the habit of having praying kids, and that they pray with you and you pray with them. That's just one of those. You're their pastor ultimately, and your kids are not going to be good Christians because you bring them to church. I assure you of that. They're going to be good Christians because you teach them to be. Period. So see, we do church, 7 days a week. Church activity is just something we do as a habit, but that is not where kids learn how to do Christianity. They're learning how to do Christianity at the house with you day in and day out. And to the degree of what they're learning is what you're teaching them, or what they're catching. Even if you're not teaching, they're seeing, they're watching, they're learning how to live from you as a parent. So always be mindful of that, because we're broken. And if you don't get a good goal and a good vision out there and start working towards it and training yourself as a father and a mother, it's not going to go well, and you're going to wonder what happened. You cannot lay that off on the church to raise your kids to be good Christians. It does not happen at church. That's at a maximum 3 hours a week. They spend a lot more time other places. So you got to maximize your time with your kids when you got it. One of the other things you do with a bedtime is you make sure, because the enemy's after your kids, and he's going to deliver a blow to them. And typically it comes sometime in their childhood. He'll try to deliver one good blow. And what he does is, something will happen in their world that's awful. It shouldn't happen. Sometimes it happens at home. Many times it happens at school or at church. One of my big blows happened at church. So if you want to talk about what's going to happen at church, maybe something really bad happens at church. Okay, and you have to keep that in mind. You as a parent need to be very aware of what is happening. If your kid shifts in an attitude in some kind of way, in a dramatic way, you need to go trying to figure out what happened. What is going on? And you do that by building a bridge to their heart to where they'll share. They need to tell you. And you need to have a strong enough relationship with them that if there's something that happened that they are really afraid about, that their love for you and their trust in you would supersede that fear. For instance, we hear about this all the time, kids that have been molested. And after they're molested, they're afraid to tell anybody. And maybe the one that molested them threatens them in some kind of way. But either way, the enemy does not want that to be shared. And he's going to apply the pressure to where it's not shared. And so your job as a parent is to get yourself in a position with your kids so that they trust you and love you to the highest degree possible, that they would share anything with you, because these things have got to be shared. That's the only way that you get to change it. Now, thank God, even if they were molested, it's not the end of the world. God has overcome things like that his whole lot, this whole time. He's into redeeming. But if you don't know about it and the child just has to live with it and gets beat to death with it by the isolation of the enemy, that's going to fester into a major life problem. And so you want to be building the bridges so that the information crosses over, you know what's happening, you know what's going on in their lives, and then you can get some good words on it. And that's what you ought to be doing anyway. They ought to be telling you what goes on in the day, and you put in a good, fresh, wise insight into their thinking. Because see, they don't know. What they think is very limited. And typically the enemy, he delivers a blow, and then he not only delivers the blow, but he gives the information about that to them. And they can be stuck with what the enemy has to say about something. It's a lie, and it wrecks lives. And that's why your life is so difficult, my life's so difficult, because that's our story. And God's trying to redeem us. So we just want to be aware of how that works and make sure we're on the inside with our kids. So there's a couple things that I've been doing. Again, we're going to have a stream of these types of things coming. I want to get in a situation with you, parent, in which we're on the same page. We're trying things. We're experimenting. We're talking about it. We're hashing out what worked and what didn't work. We're encouraging each other. We're praying for each other. That's my heart with this new series of father training. And so I'm going to be sharing things that we're doing, and I hope we get in a situation where you can share back. And I pray this is a blessing, though. It gives you some new insights. This isn't everything. It's just a little something here. I'm doing my best, but I want to do something, and I believe God's behind it, and I think God's going to do some awesome things with us here at Tennessee Avenue, and even more than that. So God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.